Just simply because those are just, the wording on those are confusing and I don't have the time to go over that. Now, the other thing is this, children, every problem on tomorrow's test is going to be incredibly similar to this. And I don't understand why you just wouldn't write down notes for yourself, like to what exactly to do on tomorrow's test. For example, you know, this problem here, a car traveled 176 miles on the car averaged how many miles per gallon? This is just a division problem, and I don't know why on problem number 1 you just wouldn't write divide, because it's going to be the same thing. So yeah, I can't. I do everything in my power to make it. I mean, it's probably not exactly right of me to tell you that, because you should have to figure that out for yourself. But tomorrow it will be. I understand the difficulty of this, and I've told you from the get-go. This is tougher. This is tougher than a lot of math that kids would be doing in high school. Now, the good point of that is if you can do it, it does give you a certain amount of whatever. But everybody learns something from all of this. So I will entertain the motions or the notions here. Let's start with number 3. If you missed problem number 3, let me just say, I can read your mind just like that, whatever that game is that we talked about before, that 20 questions game. Oh, maybe not. Number 3, if you missed it, you probably missed it simply because you didn't have the negative slope there. Because this is nothing more than looking at this, which is the y-intercept, which means when you sketch it, it crosses the y-axis at 3, should be a dot there, and the slope is a -1. It's whatever is in front of the x. A -1 just means it goes up 1 over 1, but it has to go downhill because that's negative slope. So from this point, you go up 1 over 1, and it has to go downhill. Or you could go down 1 over 1. It has to go downhill. The triangle is a 1 by 1 triangle. Same thing for problem number 2. I can tell if you missed, how many of you missed problem number 2? Okay. The problem with problem number 2 is this negative that's in front of the x. Okay. It's never good. Wow. It's never good to have a negative with the letter when it comes to inequalities. Because what's going to happen is you have to get rid of that negative. I have -2x is less than 4. I got to get rid of that. But when I change the x to its opposite sign, this sign also changes to its opposite. So if you have it backwards, it's because you didn't change that when you divide it through by the negative. And 4 divided by negative is 4 divided by -2 is a -2. So x is greater than a -2. And again, that would be the note to myself. How many of you had it as less than? Okay, note to self. Now, if it's not negative, you don't have to change it. But if it is negative on tomorrow's test, that sign is going to flip around to its opposite. And at -2, there's an open circle, and it goes this way. Okay? It's just like solving an equation. Stop me if you catch on to that. The key, children, is not in getting everything right on the pre-test. It's figuring it out before the test. That's what makes it so much. You know, if you got all these right, there's no point in actually moving on because you don't need to understand or learn anything. Since you got most of them wrong, you have a huge, huge area to which we can learn some stuff from. Martin.
I always get confused on whether to put the open circle or the closed circle.
Well, there again, that would be right myself. If there's no line under this thing, it's open. The only time you close it is if this would have an equal to 2 sign, then it gets closed. But no line under there, always going to be open. Again, jot down that note to yourself. If it's a line under it, closed, no line open. And that doesn't change, ever. Okay, whether it's negative or positive. Josh.
Can you do 2?
Problem number 2. If the sides of a triangle are 7, 24, and 25, is it a right triangle? Right triangle should tell you. Oh. Where did 2 go?
I got 8 wrong.
I'm having trouble with 2s. Oh, yeah. 2, what percent of the students in the class are girls? So to find the percent, you want girls out of total students. Right? Isn't that what it asks you?
Yeah.
How many other students are girls? Well, how many girls are there? 15 girls. How many students are there?
20%.
So how do you change that fraction to a percent?
I had 15 over 27, so.
Well, that's not a percent though.
First
First thing I would do is reduce it. It reduces to what?
5 over 9.
And then 5/9 to me sticks in my head because it's on your little reference sheet, is it not?
55.
You're allowed to use that on your test. What percent is 5/9?
55.
Now you could have done this. You could have done this with the box thing. You're still going to get the same thing. You still get the same thing. You got 15. You're comparing girls to boys. Sorry, girls, boys, total. Okay, total is 100%. You'll get the same thing as if you did it like this. 15 over 27 is what number over 100. But just know, note to self, make fraction, turn fraction to percent.
And you ran. I divided 15
What's that?
and you ran.
No, I think they left it as 55 and 5/9%. Did they? And if you can justify to me that you rounded up or something, Howie, I probably would give it to you. If you said it was, I guess 60%, I'd probably give it to you.
I put 56.
Oh, 56, yeah, that's 50. If you did that and came to me and said, here's what I did, I'd probably go, yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that. As long as you can prove to me that you get that. Taylor Pavey,
Mention number 5, please.
if I can find it, you seem to be pulling up the wrong. The weight of a load varies directly with the number of boxes in the load. A load of 18 boxes weighs 600 pounds. What does the load of 12 boxes weigh? I don't know. What are we talking about? Who's got? Varies directly. What do we say about it? You may know what we do. We say something about it? Huh? It just means it makes equal fractions. Okay. A weight of load varies directly with the number of boxes. If 18 boxes weighs 600 pounds, then 12 boxes will weigh how many pounds? That's all, you're just making equal fractions out of it. And again, I would check this out to see if I could divide this out. Does this fraction reduce? 18 over 12 reduce? What number goes with 6? It's 3 over 2. So to go from 3 to 600, you multiply by 200. 2 times 200, I hope the answer is 400. Equal fractions. I'm trying to think what we did. Did we do something about direct variation? It's proportional, equal fractions. And again, that's what I put this on my piece of paper. I show this whole thing. You just got to plug in the numbers. Math is all about being able to repeat the patterns of such. Alex Vollmer.
17.
Oh, 17. 17. Oh, here we go. Am I on the right page still?
Yeah.
I didn't switch over to some other. 17 must be way up here. Simplify. Well, I guess the first thing we have to do is what can you do with this, Alex?
Since there's a negative x, can we put it on the bottom?
Sure, why not? So I have 3yx squared and then an x on the bottom, right? So what happens to the x's? One of these x's crosses off with one of the two x's on top, so you're just left with 3yx on top. And then I have 3yx plus 2xy. Are they like terms? Indeed they are. X's and Y's are the same as Y's and X's because of multiplication, you can flip it. So if I have 3 here and I add 2 more, that means I have a total of 5 XY's or YX's or however many YX's you want.
Wait, what did you cross out on the bottom?
This was X squared and this was an X, so one of those X's crossed off with one of the 2 up there. So you're left with just one X. It was X squared over X. X squared is X times X. One of those 2 X's crosses off with the 1 X on the bottom, so you do just that X and the Y are still up there. Is that about this one?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, so why didn't you combine X and Y? Because
Why would I combine them?
Because
Okay, you're good with this, Holly? Are you good with where this came from? You know how I got 3YX? So you don't understand how this came to 3YX. You have 3x to the negative 1 y x squared. You make this exponent positive by bringing it to the bottom of the fraction. It becomes x to the positive 1 power, so it's not there anymore, correct? Now I have 2 x's up here and a 1 on the bottom. They cross cancel. One of them crosses off with 2 of them up there to leave you with just 1x left. So that ends up with 3yx, which is where this was. I have 3 of them, I add 2 more of them, I have 5 of them. Life is good all over Mackenzie Locks.
15.
15? I was hoping somebody would ask about 15, even though I don't have no idea what it is. Oh, 15. I love it. Solve for x. First thing I have to do with this, I write in my notes. Step number 1 is to distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. What do I get if I distribute out this 2? Mackenzie? What do I get if I take 2 times both of those things? I get? Correct. Step number 1 always, gotta get rid of the parentheses. Step number 2 would be to do what, Josh?
To put the X's or the letters.
Well, first, before you do that, you look to see if you can combine anything on each side, and you can't. I'm just telling you. Okay, if there was another X term over here, I could put them together, but I can't. So Josh said, you need to move your X's to one side, your numbers to the other, and that's by adding and subtracting. Okay? Move letters to one side, and numbers to the other. So how do I do that? Well, I want to move this x over here, so I subtract x. I subtract x, I'm left with just an x. And I want to move this 4 to the other side. How do I do that? I do the opposite. I subtract 4, so x equals 5. You can always check to see if that works, by the way. If you put 5 in for x, 5 plus 2 is... Wait, did I do something wrong? What did I do
Why
wrong?
did you do minus 4? Remember 15 was negative.
Because it's the you have to do the opposite.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be, I'm sorry. Negative 9 and negative 4 is negative 13. I was going to say something's not right there. X is negative 13. Sorry.
Wait,
My
how is
bad.
negative 2?
It was a negative 13.
Oh, because you have to
So
add.
negative 9 and a negative 4.
I don't
And then, like I was saying, you can put your negative 13 in here, which you probably wouldn't want to do. Negative 13 and 2 is a negative 11 times 2 is negative 22, and negative 13 minus 9 is negative 22.
know. Okay.
This one is the same thing, except it doesn't have a parenthesis in it. You can skip this first step and just move your x's, subtract an x over. You get 2x. Subtract a 7, 2x equals 8. And then how do I solve that? Divide by 2, x equals 4. Why didn't I have to divide on this one? Because it ended up that the x was by itself after I did the subtraction. This one I ended up with the number in front of the x, so I had to divide it out. Samuel Popham. All the way back to number 1. Where is number 1?
Oh, yeah.
Where was that number 1?
All the way at the front.
Yeah, it's here somewhere.
No, I just said
Is this it?
Yeah, that page.
Yeah, a car traveled at miles per whatever again. Here's the key, Sam. Your answer needs to be in miles per gallon. The word per is what? A division, a fraction line. Miles over gallons. 176 miles over 6.4 gallons. You just divide it out. 176 divided by 6.4. It looks like it's going to be what? 2, move it over 0. Move it over 0. 64 goes to 176 twice, that's 128. 480. 64 goes into 480. How many times? 7. 28, carry the 2, 42, 44. 64 goes into 320. 5 times. 27.5 miles per gallon. How nicely that worked out. Number 8, somebody asked? Somebody asked.
Yeah. You number 8.
And can you do number 7?
Number 8.
6. And number 9.
If you have a right triangle, this is just asking you if it's a right triangle, and anytime you hear the words right triangle, you should think
Pythagorean.
the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh.
Do these numbers work in a Pythagorean theorem thing? So you sit there, you know which of these have to be, what the longest line here has to be the longest measurement. So the hypotenuse has to be 25. These other two, it don't matter. We'll just make this one 24 and this one 7. Now the question is, if that is true, is that a Pythagorean triple? Is there a 7, 24, 25? And you can just go look over here. 7, 24, 25. If it's a triple, it has to be a right triangle. If the numbers fit on one of these, it has to be a right triangle. That sums it up. Okay.
So if it's
If those numbers weren't over here, unless it could be reduced. Remember, we talked about this. If I doubled both of these and I made this a 14, 50, 48 triangle, you'd have to be able to understand that you could cut those all in half to get down to here. These are all just the base numbers. You can multiply them all by 2s, 3s, 4s, whatever to get whatever comes there. And then somebody said number 7.
9.
A bag contains red marbles and white marbles in the ratio of 3 to 5. How do I know which one has 3, which one the 5 goes to? Are there 3 red marbles or 3 white marbles? 5 red marbles or 5 white marbles? How do I know? Emma Quinnichek?
There's
How do I know though?
because
Yeah, it's about order. The first one given is the first one listed. 3 reds, 5 whites. White, 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 white. What is the if 1 marble is drawn, what's the probability it is not a red marble? Well, how many not red marbles are there here?
5.
Out of a total of how many total marbles?
8.
That's your probability. 5 are not red out of 8 total ones red. Forging ahead. Bailey Lankin. Anything? And we'll skip number 10.
Can you do 9?
I will do 9.
Yes. Wait.
Number 9 again is just a matter of, and this is what I would write on my notes. Square units means you use double unit multiplier. $18 per square yard, which means it is yard times yard on the bottom. I want to find the cost per square foot. That just means I have to cross off each of these yards with a foot. So 1 yard, foot, and another unit multiplier that has yards over foot on it. 1 yard is how many feet? 3. Because this was square yards, I need double of them. Now when they cross off, boom, yards, yards, yards. It's going to be 18 over 3 times 3, which is 9.
2.
So you end up with a 2 on top. It's $2 over square feet, or $2 per square foot. Note to self, double unit multipliers. How many people just did it once and got 6? Okay. You always have to watch out. With area, it's always double. Kyle Westfall.
6.
6.
What was the answer?
Yep, and the note that I would put to myself here is this one. To change percent, you need to move the decimal 2 places. 8.5% as a decimal is 0.085. Back it up 2 places, and you're multiplying that by $40.50. Just keeping this all straight, Kyle, is probably going to be an issue. 5 times 0, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 4 is 20. Add a 0, 8 times 0, 8 times 5 is 40, 8 times 4 is 32. You get this goofy long number here. How many decimal places is there? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you come back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your answer is either going to be $3.44 or $3.45.
You have to add it to report forward.
Oh, and then you have to add it to it, including the tax. So you need to take the $40.50 and add the tax, which is $3.44 to it. So it looks like it's $43.94. So if you didn't add it to it, jot down a note there that you're supposed to give the total cost, not just find the tax, which is what I was going to do. Morgan?
Number
11. And on this one, ladies and gentlemen, I would write the formula for the area of a trapezoid in my notes. Area of a trapezoid is 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Righto?
Okay.
And then you just need to make sure that you're doing this on a nice piece of graph paper so that it works out. -3, -2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, dot. 5, -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2, dot. 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, dot. -2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the toughest thing is going to be figuring out the lengths of these things. But you just have to count the squares, or the spaces. From this dot to this dot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From this dot to this dot is 1, 2, 3, 4. And the only other thing I need to figure out is how tall that thing is, which is simply going to be from here to here. What's the distance from here to here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'd be able to count the squares on your paper. I don't have them there, so filling in the blanks, area equals 1/2 of 4 plus 8 times 5. Half of 12 times 5 is 6 times 5, and hopefully the answer was 30 units squared. Did I get it right? Forging ahead. That's it? Taylor paper.
Can you do number 12?
Answer 13.
No, not 12. Well, not for me. 13 and 14.
The volume of the prism. Volume is what? Area of the base times the height. And this is one of those where how do I know what the base is? Because of
Loaf
the,
of bread. A loaf of bread.
so the area of the base, what is the base? It's that triangle. What's the dimensions of the triangle? It's a 6 by 8. How do I find the area of a triangle? 1/2 base times height. So it's 8 times 6 is 48, half of that is 24 is the area of the triangle. And then what is the height? Note to self, there are 2 different heights here. You've got the height of the base and you have the height of the shape. Okay, these 2 things, by the way, are perpendicular to each other. The base is going to be perpendicular to its height. So if you set this on its base, if I took this and laid it on the triangle, how tall will it be? 12 inches. Okay, this is not the height of the shape, that's the height of the triangle, the base. Set it on its base, how tall does it stand? That's the height. So 24 times 12 is what? 48, 168, I believe. Inches cubed. That's the volume. And 14, the perimeter of the base. What's the perimeter of this? Here again, they don't give it to you, children. It is 8 and 6. You need to find the hypotenuse of a triangle that has 8 and 6 as its legs. I look over here. There is no 8 and 6. Oh no, what do?
Reduce.
Reduce.
Cut them in half. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. But again, to figure out the real hypotenuse, this is the base triangle. I have to double it to go back to my original. So double 5, it's 10. So it's an 8, 6, 10. 8, 6, and 10 for the side. 24 is its perimeter. Yes, ma'am. See, Taylor, this was 6, 8. Those can be cut in half, so I have to use the 3, 4, 3, 4, 5 triangle.
Oh, and then you multiply it.
Right, because I cut it in half to find the base, I have to go back and double it to find the real. Kendall Howell.
For 13, can you write out like the volume equals the numbers in it?
Are you asking if you can do it?
Or like, could you? Because I'm confused.
You don't know how to find the area of a triangle? I don't know what you're confused about. You
Like,
don't know why the height is 12, or you don't know how to find the area of a triangle?
like the numbers, where do the numbers go?
Wait, where did you get 10?
1/2 base times height is the triangle. This is the base, this is the height, they form the right angle. So it's 1/2 of 6 times 8. 48 cut in half is 24. And the height has to be the 12, that's the other side. Kai Westfall.
19 and 20.
Well, 19 and 20, I'm kind of hoping you kind of got to know how many minutes are in seconds and minutes and hours and feet and inches. All right, so this is just adding, right? 40 plus 30 is 75 seconds, but we never leave something at 75 seconds because that's more than a minute. So if I take a minute out of 75 seconds, what am I left with? 15. I have to take 60 away because that's how we make a minute. So I'm left with 15 seconds. I add 1 to the minutes. I get 66 minutes. And again, I don't save 66 minutes because that's more than an hour. I take 60 minutes away so I can put an hour over there. I'm left with 6 minutes. 1 plus 1 plus 2, I get 4 hours. 4 hours, 6 minutes, 15 seconds. Same thing with this one. If you have to borrow, you're not just borrowing 10 because there's more than 10 inches in a foot. You have to know that if I take 1 foot away from this, I have to add 12 inches to whatever this is. So instead of being 2, it's 14 inches. 6 from 14 is 8 inches. Now I have to borrow 1 from the yards. The yard is how many feet? 3. So 1 foot from 3 foot is 2 foot. And 1 from 2 is 1. 1 yard, 2 feet, 8 inches. Holly.
Can you do number 12?
I thought I did 12. You're almost to do number 12? Oh, that's right. Taylor didn't want to do it.
I got that one right.
Oh, yeah. This is the note I write to myself. I just need to substitute the term wanted for the letter N. Okay, and I would basically do this, children. Listen to me. I would, as soon as I get this paper, I would cross this off because you don't need that. That is immaterial to anything you're doing. You're just going to take the 10 and put it in for both of these ends. Okay, it is just going to be 10 times 10 minus 1. Don't worry about that letter A because it just doesn't matter. 10 minus 1 is 9, and 9 times 10 is 90. Does that help? Cross off that letter A. And just put, if this was a 7, you would put 7 in for those. If it was a 20, you would put 20 in for the ends. If it was 30, you put 30 in. And the how.
I don't really get where you got all of that.
Where I got what? The letter M?
Yeah.
Whatever they tell you here. Whatever word is written out. The 15th term, it's the 6th term. You just put that in for the letter N.
What about the other numbers?
What other numbers?
The 2, 6, 12.
It doesn't matter.
Because
Here, Kendall, do this with those. Cross those off too.
Because this showing would make me write all of these out.
Well, you could do it that way, but that's going to be goofy because if you had the 100th one, you wouldn't want to do 100 terms written out. This formula is where they came up with these numbers.
Wait, so you don't draw a square? You're showing me draw a square. What?
I don't know about the square part myself. Does it say square there?
You substitute 10.
Oh,
Actually, you
I did.
direct, you just saw it and like the one, like in our book, there's a.
Oh, you actually drew them out number-wise? First term, second term, third term? Yeah, you know.
That's what I'm guessing.
I wouldn't worry about that. You mean she did this and said, okay, term number 1 was 0, term number 2 was whatever that.
That'd take a long time.
Take this and just put it into the letter.
That'd take a
That's-
really long time.
That's why they gave you the formula, so you don't have to do the rectangle square thing. Come on, kids, we can't be done already.
Number.
We did all the
We did all. We did them all. We did number 10. Do you number 10?
That was easy.
You didn't do 18.
I got that.
Those are easy.
So let's just
case
do it. Let's
You
just do
didn't
all.
get it right. You just need to break both of these down. Don't forget to write the square root sign. 6 is the square root of 2 times the square root of 3. 12 is the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. 4 times 3. Then you just look for matches. 2 square roots of 2 give you a normal 2. 2 square roots of 3 give you a normal 3. This one doesn't combine, so you're still left with that, but don't forget you have to re-multiply these 2 normal numbers left. 6 times the square root of 2. Do something wrong?
Isn't it easier just to leave the 6 and then, well, we go to the square?
You wanna do it that way, you're right, but
Some people aren't that. Yeah,
I gotta-
Ava.
Ava, I gotta-
Stop.
cut it down to basics.
Can you explain number?
There's a lot of easiers that don't make sense to people, but
Number 10.
Can you just show us like how to do number
Can
10?
you show us how to do it?
No, I have another question.
So if you get it wrong on the test,
I don't
you'll
wanna
get
do
it on
number
the
10 because
test.
it's more complicated.
Okay.
So we're not doing it on the test either.
You will not do 10 on the test. Come out!
For 3 and 4, I have questions for,
Don't lose focus on the kids, you know what?
for 3, the +3 you circled, so you have to go up first.
That's where it crosses the y-axis at 3.
And, so the negative x, it
Is
goes.
the slope. It's really the number, Kendall, you're worried about the number in front of the x. But you don't see one, but anytime you don't see a number in front of a letter, there's always a 1 there. So the slope is -1, whatever's in front of the x. The y-intercept is this number that's always by itself out there, 3. Given those 2 things, you can graph any line.
Okay, and then number 4, you change the opposite.
If the x is negative, in the end, that sign is gonna change to its opposite. Because when you make a positive, the sign flips sides.
Wait, how do you know which way to go?
With what?
If it's
The arrow,
Which arrow? This arrow?
yeah.
Well, do you see this? Which way is it pointing? This points the same way.
Oh,
It's a handy little trick that seems to work on this.
But you
The other
can
page.
draw the arrow the other way. For the graph ones, the top line is the y and the
This is y.
yeah, and then the other one's x. Okay.
So I have a